I swear. No, I this is so many things. I'm falling into the.
National Registration Act too.
Oh, is that changed it
That's not, it's not just because it's the error went going into the yes, registration, right? There's like. I know the reason. That's why I close it. Is a guy. We said. I didn't.
Stay like here if you want to this.
Sure. And to my knowledge.
Switch out.
Dismiss.
That's the last. Be very careful when
Oh, hi.
this is gonna be there, so.
Thank you.
Let me say, just letting you know, just be careful.
I don't know, maybe if you change it to something else, then maybe your,
Oh, yeah. Just,
maybe your,
it's,
archive, possibly, maybe you hit it into archive. Try that and see if. Oh, no, that's old.
7-9.
Okay, so.
Oh, wait a minute, it's,
So right there.
Space number, yeah, it is. That's what,
But you can still access that into your file, so maybe it's just so weird where you're not at what says that you go. Why don't I try to forward it to you so you have the email and all the information?
see what it is. Okay.
So hold on, if you want to take that off of, did you take it off of the filter? So you're not only in your archives?
If you are.
And oh, wait. Sorry, yours was, I think you just went to archives, so you want to change your filter to file folders, maybe,
Okay.
or inbox.
Okay,
So you're not locked out of your inbox.
there's 7-6. That's not yesterday.
So let me see, if you can find the email from them, I'll try to.
Okay. It's just. check.
So
It's
that's-
John. A-L-Y.
I would just say she has a reason to us.
Oh,
I saw, he saw me in the garage and asked me to let you know that she's just trying to find a spot. I'm sorry, I thought.
Yeah, you just mentioned it. I was just reminded.
Perfect.
The problem is I miss her because I
I
haven't
guess
seen
we
her.
can clear the
in meetings.
filter. It's not
I
just.
don't have a seat mate over
Only
here,
from
guys.
So,
Just go inbox.
So you're at a very far distance.
yeah, I don't. So,
Sorry.
there, okay, well, at least you got, no.
Thank you.
Sorry, it wasn't.
No, that's okay.
Oh, you know what the email I sent you is maybe, it just says the room changed, so I may need to do this one.
But that's okay. Please.
Slash.
So it's, maybe it's on Phil's. Like,
Yeah, you need.
All this, sorry.
You should call me.
I know, because it came like right now. I was gonna say, this is like on this computer and email.
Yes.
Spell.
It's not coming up. F-I-A-L.
Yeah, you gotta do things on it.
Oh, and. Well, there again, I just have all these restrictions coming.
This will take a while, I'm sure, because of it.
It's cheaper.
The other challenge is I don't think, really not the base of your phones, get phones, you can't call or text or email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right parking. We're doing the parking.
So,
So what's?
Thank you.
I was on the blue level. And there was a spot like on the corner that looks like it shouldn't be a spot. And I did, there's one in there. It can't be a spot.
Yeah, I'm saying.
But I would drove around, I took it, and I'm like, it's like that end style pole, it's right now. Love, it's either spot or not. It gets twice, but, it's pretty much that, or leave the lot and look for whatever I find out.
Been here.
Oh,
yeah.
Fire.
There's
That's
people that.
Oh, he told you to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you went to Manassas, they had you work
No,
there?
yeah, there was a guy. Young guy, like, rocks.
Oh.
But I got here like 30.
Okay, so maybe. I was like, I was real.
That's why I was too, but he was like.
I tell you what, a fire happens down there and somebody gets hurt and they're gonna, that person's gonna end up in jail. And his great grand ears will never have to die.
I saw those all over. I saw people doing that. I was tempted, but I was like, I'm the sister of the fire chief, so I was like.
I'm with it.
I'm like, that would come back on me or that.
I didn't even have a. I should have taken a picture of it.
Yeah, this is the guy. He told me.
Did they tell you what's going on? It's got things.
He just said there was really busy. He was a young.
I know if there's a legislative hearing.
Just sent me an email.
Sorry. Yeah, yeah.
So. And I don't mind so.
Oh, so maybe he was just down for, yeah. Right over. Yeah, and it's probably blocking because they get an opportunity to get in front of them. Move their agenda. Yeah, I was driving through, like, job, yeah. No, that we need to park it for our meeting in this 1914. It'd be nice. Right, parking. Like by where the double street is, that's probably so limited to the legislators.
Well, that's where we have the parking spots. So you want to sell it. That's why I parked today and there's one of the, this part
Yeah.
here. But I was one about. Oh, yeah. 3 or 4 years ago, they come into my office one day and just, you're gonna get a parking space. Like, and,
They're like, I'll take it.
well, no, it was like unsuspicious. When is DAS ever given away any?
Oh, that's a great point.
And so it was like.
That's funny.
No, you're getting upset. Okay, but and they did, I think they didn't use it, tell me different from like things. Somebody might have been about legislature getting Sharpie for busy and being a tax issue of some sort. And so. They private everybody in the building based on building space to be in one spot. Then
It's no longer a special.
That's fine. So I figured, so that's why we ended up getting.
Well, you know, right, it's like she.
Yeah, that doesn't.
What was allowed, but I could very well be.
Yeah, because there was also, I was in one time, we went a couple of houses for you to. Okay. They're okay. They're that, look at it. And we had to start with some, 40 minutes.
Right, because they were able to wish them.
And benefit Dan, and I just kept saying, I'm sorry, it's.
Right, it's.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing. It's followed by, well, we need to increase in our budget, so we can help them meet.
Found a spot finally?
I made one. Yeah.
So we know that Peter's know what we're doing.
Yeah.
On of the way and not.
He was told to park there, so.
Yeah.
That's the heck.
Thank you.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Did you just find one or did they take you to a spot?
No, I found a spot that I didn't think was a spot. It's like, it's after the polls and I'm driving it by it. There's a line there. So I'd already passed it, but I went all the way around and sure enough, I mean, but I'm worried my big vehicle there's not a sideswipe. But it's a spot.
Spot.
Probably should.
But I'm double checking, I'm looking, I'm like, this shouldn't really be a spot, I don't think, but it sure was.
Yeah, I know.
Same thing with the state fire marshal, the state occupied.
There's no guarantee for.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, honestly, like, I don't know if I can get out of my spot. I might be here tonight. So anyway,
All right.
all right. So thank you for your patience. At this time, it's 10:18. I'd like to call the September 14th meeting of the Ohio Elections Commission order. Mr. Richard, we call roll.
Mr. Carroll, President, Mr. Knight. Here, Ms. Hagan,
Present.
Mr. Lyle,
Present.
Vice Chair Doris,
Here.
Chair Kaufman.
Here.
All present with the exception of Mr. Colby.
Do we have a motion to excuse Mr. Polk?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. You can do a second and all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign.
I do have a question, because I'm curious, since he's technically alternate, does he need to be excused? I mean,
I wonder, I have not specifically looked into it, but my answer would be yes, only because as he would have been expected to be here otherwise, because the other Democratic member has yet to be appointed.
Okay.
There is an obligation for him to be here, but he cannot because he's ill, so therefore.
Didn't excuse Mr. Stoutberg when he missed and he was to fill in.
I thought we did.
Maybe we did, but it's not a big deal. It's, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I think.
Maybe we did. It's not a big deal. I get there's a difference, but you know, it's one of these anomalies.
Right. But anyway, okay, thank you all very much.
Wait, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, we already did that.
Yeah.
Motion carries with a vote of 6-0.
Correct.
Okay. All right, at this time, I think everyone's had a chance to review the meeting minutes from August 24th. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 6-0. First on our agenda is preliminary reviews. It'll be fine, I promise. The first one is Robertson, v. Curlis. I do think we have people present for those, for that matter.
We do, I don't know that he would want to speak, but he certainly is, we can do so. Nick Soulis, counsel for Mr. Robertson, is present. We received yesterday, and I'll be saying this for each of the next two cases after this one. We received a stipulation from the parties asking that the commission set these matters for hearing. And so, even though my recommendation is to set the matter for hearing, my recommendation based on the stipulation is to set this matter for hearing. I'll be glad to answer any other questions the commission may.
Any questions of Mr. Richter?
So when we talk about the parties, so the respondent, the respondent.
Counsel for the respondent.
Okay.
And at this point, I would make the hearing date open. When we figure it out.
Mr. Knight, the other one I shouldn't have come back around. That was
Okay.
only one signature. So I
Okay,
apologize for
got
that.
it. No worries. I'm looking for whether I need to sign it or not. Thanks.
So having no further questions or comments, do we have a motion?
Second.
Alright. We have a motion that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried with a vote of 6-0. The next, the next matter is the Bryan versus Curlis. Mr. Richter,
Same situation. We received a stipulation from the parties, from counsel from those parties, asked to have the matter set for hearing. And so my recommendation would be to set this matter for.
So moved.
there's a motion that's been duly seconded on the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 6-0. The next matter is, I don't know how to pronounce this. Jonesy, okay, Cooney versus Curlis. Mr. Richter,
We received a stipulation on this matter as well. And so my recommendation, stipulation from counsel from both parties, is to set this matter for hearing.
So moved.
Second.
we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 6-0. Actually, I skipped. Oh, no.
You didn't? Oh, you didn't.
Okay. Okay.
You're
All right.
smart. But you didn't do it.
Okay. The next matter is Citizens for Charlotte McGuire et al. Case number 2023G. Thank you. Dash 013.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, this is essentially a self-referral. The treasurer for the committee filed this referral with us, indicating that they're out of balance by approximately $130 between what is shown in the committee bank account and against what is reflected in the campaign finance report. They're asking us to declare the committee's balance as $285.38. And so my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $100 for the fact that they are out of balance and filing an incorrect campaign finance report. But then to go on and reflect that the campaign finance account balance is $285.38, so that they can then file an updated report and have a good balance from this point forward. I'll be glad to answer any other questions that you may have.
Would it be helpful to find the amount of $285.38?
My understanding is they're not wanting to terminate, so that's one of the reasons why I didn't do that.
Okay.
I mean, that would have been certainly, if we were to terminate, then we could declare them terminated, but, at this point, after thinking about it a while, that's why I came up with the offer that I did. It's the first time that this committee has been before the commission.
Madam Chair, that was going to be my question if this was a first time offense, and if so, if the heart and spirit of the commission is to bring people into compliance, is it necessary to apply a fee at this point?
I wouldn't say it's necessary, but I guess I would say typically in these kind of circumstances, unless there is something outstanding that gives me an idea to not want to recommend an imposition of a fine and just recommend good cause, I would do that. There wasn't anything, as I saw the submission to the commission, that just kind of said, "Damn, we're out of balance. Help us out here." And so that's the reason for my recommendation. Alternatively, as you point out, in an effort to just assure that people are in compliance, if the commission wants to, find that there's good cause present, I'm not gonna complain about anything like that. I'm merely making my recommendation based on what typically we do.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question, I guess. So let's say we did not impose a fine of $100. Would that make their account $385?
No, the balance that they have indicated is $285.38.
And what, what was, okay, it was $130 difference
Correct.
in the bank account versus the campaign account.
Correct.
Got it. So basically, it's a question of who keeps $100
Mm-hmm.
ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
In this dynamic, they keep $30 or
Well, no,
they may just have not accounted for it appropriately.
right, what presumably, and I want to think that it's. Rereading. Yeah, that's okay. There. Let's see, after providing request, the balance on hand of $101.32 no longer corresponds to the actual cash on hand, which is $285. So their campaign finance report is reflecting less than they're actually in their account. And he hasn't been able to identify the $134.06 discrepancy because he identified a $50 contribution.
Okay.
So the actual amount in the account based on this is $285.38. But their campaign finance report is reflecting less than that.
Got it.
Thought that was the case, but I couldn't remember.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, my only other question would be, is there any other means for reconciling a situation like this? Secretary of State's office, did they do anything to be helpful?
No,
What can be done
nothing.
other than just being forthright with the commission?
That's why I make these kinds of recommendations, because I've had those kind of conversations with not only staff at the Secretary of State's office, but at various boards of elections. In these kind of situations, the statutes don't allow for a board or the secretary to make any kind of adjustment. So I will encourage persons to file complaints more or less against themselves with us. And then as a part of our findings, we'll declare, sometimes we'll declare them terminated. Sometimes we'll declare a situation like this where we'll declare a specific balance so that they can then go forward. And it allows them then to use this as evidence to the Board of Elections, because otherwise, if they went and did it, if they just went and did it and made a note to the Secretary's office, then they'd still get referred to us
Right.
for being out of balance and filing an incorrect campaign finance report, presumably.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one last one. Why 100 and not the full 130?
I don't know that I've got a good answer for that aside from even numbers. And I've done odd numbers before, to be honest with you. But they came to us and, indicated they had a problem. And so I'm trying to take some of that into consideration as well. As I look at, kind of say, okay, you came to us without any prompting otherwise, or without anything else being pointed out. I'm looking to just, be, I don't know if I want to say kind, but to just take all that into respect as I go ahead and make my recommendations. I've done that before, though. Right.
I think a few times I recall you've done the whole thing. So.
And I think, Commissioner, if I may, I was going the same direction, but because they didn't want to terminate. I think that's the difference, right? Mr. Victor,
Mhm.
we've had a couple of these that I can remember that they wanted to terminate and we took their balance.
Right. That's and that will certainly play into my recommendation, depending on the circumstances. And, you know, it could be, we've had those situations where they're out of balance the other way, where they don't have enough money in the account and the campaign and finance reports are showing more. There are times I'll still impose a fine in a situation like that. And then it becomes around, and essentially it's the responsibility of the treasurer and or the candidate to make that payment because their campaign account is out of balance and less than zero, which they can't have either.
It's kind of an interesting dilemma. On one hand, I agree with Commissioner Hagan that the priors, they owned up to it themselves. And in any other situation, we would be doing a permanently a good cause, right? On the other hand, it's kind of it's kind of an adverse incentive, right? You know, a campaign goes and misses, doesn't find 3 or 4 of their donations, self-reports, and in this example, makes $30, right? And if we pose no fine, they make 130. So, you know, kind of, I'm on both sides of this coin, neither of which align directly with your recommendations. I'm not saying I don't support it,
No,
but it's kind of a unique situation.
I understand. And, you know, and that's, before I make a recommendation, some of what you're talking about are the calculus that I go through in terms of, all right, do I want to impose a fine or not? What level fine do I impose? How many times has this happened? You know, all those kind of things come into play as I'm making my recommendation to you guys. On a case like this, or on any case that we get along these lines. And it's interesting we have this conversation only because of the 3 prior cases that we've had. That at some point, I would anticipate we're going to have to make a similar type of finding for those cases. And an innumerable number of, at least to me, innumerable right now, other cases that I understand are out there involving other candidates for which the treasurer in the previous cases is listed as the treasurer for those campaign committees.
Thanks.
Questions?
I move we accept the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 6-0. The next case is actually a group of cases.
I was gonna say, you want me to just, why don't I just get
Yes,
it?
please.
The next cases for consideration by the commission are all that are listed, essentially all that are listed there, because while they are different case numbers and different organizations, they all have the same treasurer. And they are case numbers 2021 R-343, 2022 R-025, 2023 R-298, 2023 R-299. And there are a couple of other cases that have so far yet to be numbered that are also currently in the commission's possession related to that group. The next grouping is case number 2022 R-344 and 2022 R-026. And again, there is at least one other case and currently in the commission's possession. And then the same for the last group down there, case numbers 2022 R-029 and 2023 R-301. And there are some other cases. And you see my recommendations there for each of the respective ones. This morning, when I came into the office, see what time I received it. Mr. Sunshine, who has not otherwise been in contact with me, I talked with you about, I think, the August 9th email. There was an email in my inbox this morning in which Mr. Sonnenschein said, I am unable to attend today's hearing because I was not able to get time off from work. I am therefore requesting a continuance from November 16th And so, after thinking about it, and I have changed my recommendations on all these cases. And I'm torn between granting the continuance and keeping my recommendation as it is, but then maybe setting these up for, let's say, maybe even reconsideration on November 16th. And before, I wanted to see what everybody else here wants to do as it relates to all of these matters, because certainly we could just kick him again, assuming that he will then, then he's got a little more than 2 months to make arrangements and get here. And we can address them at that time. The other cases that we have, we'll have those numbered, and they will be included in here as well. I have provided copies of all those to him by email, so that he is aware of everything that's out there. So I'm leaving it up to you. I am sticking with my recommendations, but I certainly am not going to vehemently argue for them if we believe that just continuing them to the 16th is a better option.
I have a question, Madam Chair. May or may not be relevant, but it is to me. So I'm curious how this guy contacted you, Phil, because on all the ICWs, it says return receipt, no card on every one of them.
Right.
So how does he now? I just find it interesting that we don't have, he's claiming he didn't have any receipt. We now,
Purpose on it.
right, but
Well, he's never claiming that his previous email was just, actually, he sent it prior to our August 10th meeting, thinking they were on August 10th when they were actually on the 24th. But he said, I can't make the meeting, can I continue these to September 14th? That's a cold email, because I've not had any other contact with him.
so he sent you the email?
He just sent me an email.
I mean,
Yes.
he initiated the email to
He
you.
initiated the email to
Oh,
me.
that's interesting.
Yeah, and so now we have contacts,
But no,
and so now, not only will we mail things out to him as we did when we continued these, I will email them to him
Right.
as well. And so, he reached out to me, and I didn't talk to him in advance, so I don't know if he may have been in contact with staff. This is all from Cuyahoga. He may have been in contact with the person I worked with in Cuyahoga County, who encouraged him to be, to be in touch and gave him my email address, staff Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. But he reached out to me, so we now have contact.
okay, good.
And so
I was just curious how that happened.
fine, and my recommendation, for argument's sake, if he, now we're off, if you want to continue, we're off to November 16th, which again,
Right.
the problem is that's what everyone wants to do. The only recommendations that I will make that be any different would be, one, if he actually does get the reports filed in the intervening period and take care of the responsibilities and submit something to me to give some sort of an explanation. If he doesn't do any of that, my recommendations will include essentially, 2 more months worth of $100 per day. Because, based on everything I've been given, he has filed certain reports, because some of these, I think the majority of these are all for addenda that he has not filed with the Board of Elections. So he's done some.
No, they are.
Considering they're requesting addendas. But in other regards, he hasn't filed certain things, because some of the ones that we just have in, I think, reflected failure to file 22 annual, which would have been due in January 31 of this year. So he's doing something, but he ain't doing a lot.
He has something from 2017 that he hasn't filed an annual report. Did he file that?
I talked things down with the Board of Elections to know where he is. But I know
don't think
that,
it's-
like I said, some of the more current
Certain
ones
it's weird.
are for addenda
Yeah.
that would indicate that something had been filed in the intervening period, a 19, 20, 21 reports, either semis or annuals.
Yeah, there's a lot of addendums in here. But then,
Looks like, hold on,
On this particular treasure,
Yeah, a lot of history here.
a few times.
Could do anything.
Madam Chair, for the executive director, would it be possible to consolidate and continue? So we could at least accomplish the consolidation and then next time allow for that person to be present if they so wish.
I guess I'd be more inclined to say we just continue all the matters. I mean, we could certainly consolidate the ones, I'm keeping them separate because they're for different committees. I'm
Right,
not consolidating all of them into one
right.
big one.
But the libertarians and the network.
Yeah. I mean, they all have something to do with libertarianism, let's put it that way. Based on the titles of the organizations.
Treasure for meetings.
Any other questions or comments?
I mean, I have a comment, I guess. I mean, if we ask for continuance, I think we should grant continuance. I mean, the only downside is the $100 a day. I mean, we could always decide later, that maybe you recommend the 7,600 and we stop the $100 a day as of today, because that was when we asked for it, depending on what we learn on the next one, right? He reached out to us. Very rarely do I remember a time that we didn't grant a request for continuance. So I guess I don't know why we wouldn't in this case.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you said. What I will add, and you're welcome to say that I may be being a bit petty in terms of my recommendation. Had I gotten this yesterday, or had I come into the office, I was in the office early this morning, but didn't have access to email. That's a whole different issue. Had this been sent yesterday and I had gotten it, I probably would have already changed my recommendation to continue. But I mean, because I reached out to him with the other materials that we have. First off, prior, I don't know, shortly after he requested the continuance last time, I reached back out to him and said, hey, just for your information, here's all the referrals, here's my case summary sheets, here's everything. And then when Chris was going through recent referrals that we got from Cuyahoga, he came across all these other ones that they just submitted to us. I sent them to him on Monday. Monday afternoon, Monday morning.
Fair enough, but
So
we very regularly get last minute things from councils and responses, and we, at least my impression anecdotally, is we pretty much just take them and accept them, even if we're frustrated with the inability to read them. I can't recall the time that we didn't. So, just looking at it, I understand the frustration that can create, but I mean, it's hard for me to reconcile that in this particular situation, that's the appropriate viewpoint. In other situations, that's tended to not.
okay, makes perfect sense. Are you turning that into a motion?
I would like to move that we continue. These are the first four, correct? Or is it all of them?
I think we can do all, if we're just gonna continue, I would encourage, and say we can just do all of them.
I would move that we continue the entire set of cases read off by the chair prior to the beginning of this discussion.
November 16th.
To November 16th, yeah.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I
Pose same sign. Motion carries to continue these cases to November 16th at a vote of 6-0. Okay, so that would conclude our cases and take us to the next category, which is other business. And that is the discussion regarding the evaluation criteria for the executive director's position.
Yeah, do we have copies? We
Sure do.
And
If you want, we're gonna need two more opens.
Just like one quick, well, I was telling them I get upstairs, I was going, I get it just first.
This one, page, you know.
Every week.
Well, the other, yeah, it fit on one page. There are certain,
Bizarre.
there were certain things you were supposed to comment on the second
Oh,
page.
yeah, we can include those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so to this point,
Yeah.
then I'll include that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe that's, because this was all the verbiage.
It is weird.
I'm happy to leave this if that is okay. Madam Mayor.
Absolutely. Thank you.
yeah, you're looking low, right?
So, a few weeks ago, Commissioner Lyle and the executive director and I, sat down and walked through, the various items that we've chatted about over the past number of months. But with a kind of a streamlined perspective that, hey, it's almost the end of Q3 and we don't have a criteria set for the evaluation at the end of the year. So what we did was we said, okay, we can just look at things that kind of represent the 9 months of 2023 to date, but can be also add in Q4 with some things we think fit and are achievable in one quarter. Kind of thinking about larger strategic priorities, we figured we would table that and open up for potentially a larger, different set of a subcommittee to look at for 2024 later in the year. But for now, to just focus on the 2023 and the evaluation perspective itself. We kept the 3 high-level categories: operations management, strategic thinking, and customer focus. And we pretty much kept what we thought in terms of a weighting. Operations management, 70%, that's the core business of what we do. Strategic thinking, 20%, and we'll dig a little into that. And customer focus, 10%. It's somewhat overlap strategic thinking, but it's more kind of focused, and we may table that as we go into 2024, but it kind of fit some of the things we were thinking about for discussion. So looking at operations management, you'll see it pretty much describes, the day-to-day role of the executive director and staff attorney, and primarily what we do. Certainly, if folks have thoughts on edits or things to add, we were trying to make it not too wordy, but wordy enough. Some of this was copied right from and adjusted right from the job description that we've had traditionally. Probably the one thing I think that's added was provide thought leadership, which traditionally Phil does a great job. Things like going abroad, going to campaign studies, those types of things, the advisory opinions, but that would all fit into that. That's probably the one thing that's a little different than what you may have seen before. And it was in previous versions of this, I'm talking about traditional job description. So I guess I'll stop there. Any questions, comments, concerns on, I guess, the 3 categories, and the weightings, and then the operations management specifically, and we'll get to the rest later, but I wanted to kind of pause for thoughts and comments at this point.
I do have a question on the 70% weighting of operations management. I totally agree with the percentage. You have 4 different categories. Why don't we have 4 different categories of voting, so to speak, on how the candidate does for each one of those, as opposed to grouping them all together?
It should. That's more sort of on the floor. a limitation of my,
Oh, computer.
my copy and paste chart ability. But yes, imagine a world where each of these sub bullets for all of these is
All the circles.
all of them, right? So I apologize for my.
I think it's perfect.
If we can just circle those in.
No, we can both work on
Yeah.
figuring out how to get those across there, because I haven't worked on this any further either. It's in
I
my
didn't
system.
notice.
Google Doc.
We could do, I mean, literally, when we started this process, I went and did, a search for these types of templates and reviewed several and thought this kind of fit the best for what at least I was envisioning we would navigate towards, and did a copy and paste and then started filling in the things. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, we could do a Google Doc, we could do anything that makes sense.
I kind of like it. I think it's just.
The simplicity.
Exactly, exactly. One little click.
Yeah.
Is it the time for annoying grammatical recommendations or not? That's why-
I know.
Only if we're voting on this, so I didn't know if they're on the third section of the first category, just if there would be consistency in legal counsel, fiscal director, there's just different capitalizations. But
Yeah,
again, not a criticism in any way, because I was not sitting here painstakingly creating the document.
yeah,
But just as we finalize, if there's one set of eyes, maybe.
sure.
Can-
And
I
yeah,
could call them.
all cards on the table, we weren't focusing a lot on
No,
the type of
no,
thing.
no, and you shouldn't have, because you were creating the actual
And
end of the
and
conversation.
whether we have the vote or not, I gave that some thought the last couple of days. I mean, certainly it's up to the group. I don't think we need to vote on this. I mean, we haven't voted on formats before. We just kind of generally know that this is the criterion, and come time to do the, the actual evaluation, we're using this framework, and then we'll do a vote based on that. I don't know that we need to approve this, but I mean, if the rest of the members think we should, I mean, I'm certainly fine with it.
Yeah, the only reason I think we should is that we're gonna have new commission members.
Oh,
And so you wanna look at your history, so what were you using? Why did you come up with that, just to be clear.
That makes sense.
The institutions have no memory, but
Right.
the minutes do,
Exactly.
so I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
okay. And, if we are looking to do that, I don't think, well, we can do it today if everyone thinks we can and should, pending cleanup. Or we can maybe do it, I know we got a lot, the 20th and the 28th. I would like to do it before the end of the month, so we've at least got a full quarter that we're all in agreement, so.
Ernie, can I just
Sure.
add a couple of things on here? So on the customer focus, we didn't really have a discussion as to who are our customers.
Well, can we get to that at the end if you don't mind?
Oh, you're gonna do that?
Yeah, I was going section by section.
Okay, and do you have that's fine. Do you have those other questions too? Because we don't have. them here.
Bill didn't print them out. I have them. And I can pull, if people can pull them up, we can talk about them.
Okay, that's fine. All
They're
right.
on they're on what I sent to everybody yesterday, but
Yeah, I see them on here. They're just,
I just only. printed
there's
out this
actually,
page
if
because
people
this is
didn't
the
realize,
page.
there's 2 pages.
The comments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, well, we had
Yeah,
the
like
questions that
3
we would be
questions.
filling out. But
Sure.
Walk me through, the process. So each one of us would fill this out at a certain point of the year. And they'd be tabulated, and then yes, do we share the results with Mr. Richter and all that constructive,
Great questions. So based on how we did the evaluation last year, which is my own experience, as context, so at the end of the meeting, we went to executive session, we had a conversation, and a recommendation came out of the conversation in terms of, really what amounted to a pay bump primarily, right? I mean, what was it? And into some, right? A few, areas of improvement, I guess, and generally, things that we liked. So the way I would sort of envision this would be, we would pick what date that's gonna be about a month before. We could all fill this out. One of us, and I'm happy to be that person, can take and sort of, combine them into what would represent the group averages. And then we would have that same conversation, everyone would have what their own is, and then whoever would have what the averages were. And we would have the same type of conversation around what we wanted to put in formally, right? And then agree to what's gonna be put in formally is probably afterwards, right? Combined with formally, and then at the next meeting, have the conversation with the executive director. Generally, is kind of how I see it, but certainly open to improvements.
Yeah, I think in the past, have we not done it as a group instead of everybody submitting their own? There was a time where we just all were able to address whatever the question was and address, what we thought were,
That's another approach. We can just
Yeah.
have the executive session and everybody just talk and kind of agree in real time.
Right.
We can certainly do it that
Or
way.
you could do a Survey Monkey. I mean, we've done out to my board, the criteria, and each of them have filled in the blanks
Sure.
and determined, that there's a summary that comes out afterwards. I mean, so nobody has to do it.
That's a better way to do it. Other than being a recipient, I've never used Survey Monkey in that regard. So that would require one of us to know how to do that. That would be the better way to do it, absolutely.
it's easy to create a Survey Monkey. Even I can do that.
Well, there you go. I'm not saying I'm not capable, I've never tried.
Well, you are the chair.
Okay. I can create a-
But absolutely, that would be a better approach.
Yeah.
On this first section, Ernie, do we have a percentage on the weighting of the breakdown of the 70
We-
for those?
We did not get to that level of granularity. I mean, we certainly could, if that's what the commission prefers. I mean, I'll leave that up to, to whomever. Would people prefer we do that? And there's a part of me that says, great to have, but in the interest of not waiting, making this last through December to get it agreed to. If we can do it real quickly, I mean, I don't feel strongly, I think thought leadership's probably the.
1750.
17.5.
Yeah, 17.5.
One or the other.
I'd interject to say that the first three there, you probably about equivalent in all of those approximately, and
The
then
last one's pretty-
the last one would be,
A little bit less.
I'd say significantly less than the other aspects of it, yes. So I mean, if you wanted to weight it, that's certainly.
Even if you did
One,
22,
right.
and then 4 on the last.
Yeah,
It's just really not really where your time is.
I mean, just to be real simple, to make the math work, we could do 10% on the thought leadership and then 30 on the everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real
That's-
quick.
60, 90 to 100.
That's.
Yeah.
the first thing that occurs to me would be if you wanted to do that.
Because it's 100% with the 70, right?
Okay, I was breaking the 70 down.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it on Survey Monkey as a whole, I
Yeah.
would think you'd want it to be incremental to the whole proportion.
Well, I mean, so just put 0.3 times 70.
Yeah, 22, 22, 22, maybe 4
Yeah.
or something.
Sounds like,
Yeah.
Commissioner Hagan is very proficient in Survey Monkey.
I'm not, I am a great overseer of things, and then there are other people that come in and make sure I don't look like an idiot. Those people make everybody look good. That's Chris.
We are now officially in football season. Hunting is appropriate.
You drop 10 yards.
Yeah.
on it. Well, I try.
More of an
I
idea
would say,
guy.
so.
Get that.
I think that's sports analogy.
Yeah, if we do
Yeah,
that,
right.
I'm happy to. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's simple as pulling the website up, so it's not. that- You know, you guys have done a lot of heavy lifting here. It'd be our pleasure to assist.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
I do too, since I had to sit through 2 hours with those two.
At least have a good lunch.
Took a lot of patience.
We had an excellent,
Yeah.
I was very appreciative.
Well, now that I know there was lunch, you've basically been compensated, so I'm out.
Hey, I think I bought lunch. I'm happy to take you to lunch. Survey Monkey. When I have a Survey Monkey lunch, I can show up or send me the bill. Either way, all good.
So the other question that I have, it doesn't necessarily relate to this, but it was some of those that I had to leave at the last meeting. It was the meeting before. I apologize. They kind of run together. When it comes to some of our goals for 2024 on the credit card processing, reviewing or at least exploring an online case filing system, and whatever those are, at what point do we kind of commit those to paper and empower the staff and ask both Mr. Hughes and Mr. Richter to please move forward to the extent that they can?
That is an excellent segue to strategic thinking.
See, I
Appreciate you teeing that up for me.
Yes.
So, on the strategic thinking side, for the original, when we were just first starting that, and I think what's driven a lot of the elongated conversation are just those things. And we have a host of ideas, all of them good, but we have limited staff to perform them. So, what we did here with only a quarter left, we picked one that we thought was doable in Q4 by the team, and this, included the exhibitors' input. Just kind of doing an initial assessment and thoughts on potential future utilization of operational metrics. We thought it was an achievable Q4 only project. The second goal, the second bullet, is drafting a 2024 strategic plan. You can call it a budget, you can call it whatever it is. And this is a Q4 project, so we would hopefully have it by, end of the year. As we're going through that process, my hope would be that all commission members and whomever would send their list of ideas, hopefully prioritize. If you got 20 of them, tell us which one you think are most important. And a subcommittee will kind of look at the strategic plan, look at those things and come up with criteria for 2024 that's in the plan, including the criteria, and takes all that into account. So, as you have them over the next couple of months, send them, I presume, to Phil. And so I think they're the director, and that'll be a part of 2024 planning and criteria. Can't do them all. We're gonna have to make decisions on what I can't do. Hey, you've got the ends of the legislature. Go get his budget. But anyway, that was my thought on how we would think about that as we do this 2024 plan. We would, get the input and try to determine what was doable and made sense given our resources.
So are we expecting a preliminary rough draft of the strategic plan for 23 from these guys? And then
Yes,
we're
that's
deliberating?
that's the second bullet in the strategic thinking.
So they would do this prior to us evaluating it, is my point. So when is that?
Provided a draft
Right,
plan
right.
at some
So you
point,
guys can review it.
so we can review it. And then ideally, right? In January, we're having the discussions on what we want to approve, not approve, and hopefully by end of January, early February, we have approved
Strategic plan.
2024 plan. So I guess my
So
expectation
we're
is not,
skipping 2023 as a strategic year. Is that what I'm hearing?
well, no, we put in the metrics because we only have a quarter left. So if you want to replace that with something else that the staff feels is doable to do for,
I just thought maybe if we had a draft this year, we would implement it for 23.
Of the wish list.
Right, right, yeah. If
Yeah.
you guys provided a draft to us
Yeah.
prior to this evaluation, we say, yeah, this looks good, or no, scrap it, do X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z. We real time decide what is achievable, then that could start happening January 1 and then the full year. And then next year, come this time, we're actually evaluating the implementation. Am I missing? I might be just
I think you're both saying the same.
I think we are. I think we are. I think the only thing that you might be saying a little bit different is if we know earlier what we're gonna prioritize, why not start it earlier? That's just fine.
Okay, you were just out maybe a quarter or something.
Well, no, I mean, so I guess.
I
think
just heard
recognizing-
2024, so I didn't.
Well, it's a 2024 calendar year plan. So it needs to be completed in 2023, so you can implement in 2024.
The plan completed in 23.
Yes.
For a 24 implementation.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because if they're given the third quarter to actually put the plan together, we might not have it until December 1 or
Or
December 15 or
Yeah.
either January 1st. So that for the implementation, approval and implementation.
And then they have a full year
They
to.
have
Yeah.
it exactly,
Yeah.
right.
And I, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. You probably not put together this type of a plan before.
It's in their heads.
So,
Not really.
there's gonna be, not that it's rocket science, but there's gonna be a learning curve. There's gonna be some iterations of it, right? So, I think a quarter is the right amount of time.
Okay.
Well, that's what we discussed was essentially putting it together through the remainder of this year. And not that I'm planning on having it done on December 31st and then dumping it on you, but through this period of time, having it assembled.
Right.
And then presenting it to you toward the end of the year, so that then as a part of the review process, you have it, can assess it, and then figure out what we want to implement, what we want to actually state as the 2024 strategic plan.
Right.
Sorry for the confusion on my
No,
part.
that's all right. And that way, obviously, the whole board gets to have their input
Well, it's the
before the
typical,
final product.
it's the typical challenge of calendar year, fiscal year analysis, if you want to do it that way. I mean,
Right.
yeah, because right now we're in fiscal year.
In the future, if it,
Because they do two, right?
in the future, want to line it up with the fiscal year, I mean, we can certainly do that if that makes a difference to you.
I'm more inclined to do that on a calendar year basis, and that's my
Well,
inclination, but
it's my inclination primarily because that's when the evaluation takes place. I mean, I would say if we were gonna change it, we should change your evaluation time frame to July.
Right.
Right, line up with
right.
it, but,
Right.
so any other thoughts, comments on that piece?
So, my only question, I think you may have hit on it earlier. I wanted to confirm where's the repository of our ideas over the coming
Yeah.
weeks?
So, I mean, my initial inclination was just send your thoughts to Phil. If there's another way we want to do it. I mean, there's no magic. Clearly, it's just an email to Phil. Hey, that's not much magic. If you want to do something different, then. I mean, thoughts on does that approach work?
Yeah, I think it would probably be beneficial for us to have, put a hard date. Or at least a soft date to have, thoughts sent over to the executive director by, although the deadline may be arbitrary, at least gives us that.
Well, no,
I'm a guy that works on days, you know?
I mean, I think, we need to get it so that it had the appropriate time for consideration. I mean, I would throw out October 15.
I was gonna say October 31, but October 15 is, that's more optimistic. I like it.
Well, hopefully the ideas are in everyone's head, it shouldn't take a lot,
Yeah, no, you're right.
and then the staff needs to have time to assimilate them, about which ones are doable, can they do it, all of that takes more time than just the idea generation. At least this year, future years, you know, well, we're not gonna be able to do all of them, we're gonna have a whole backlog, I'm sure, but.
Yeah. Yeah, so what we're saying is have those thoughts sent over to the executive director by 10:15. Right?
Is everyone comfortable with that?
10:15 on the 15th. Sorry, I'm making the Survey Monkey.
Good.
Really? And like
Yeah.
you can do that from a phone?
Oh, yeah.
No,
So
So.
it's good at this stuff, man.
Because I don't wanna do the math
Just fix my
otherwise.
email
And
today.
see make things up to 100. I'm gonna throw out 80-20 strategic plan to metrics on those two bullets between each other.
I'm sorry, Ernie, could you say that again? I missed.
On the goals for strategic thinking, so one of the
Yeah.
bullets, I was gonna do 80% strategic plan, 20% assessment of metrics.
Have it, thank you.
And that's okay, I'm throwing it out, if others want to
Gotcha.
have other thoughts on the weighting.
Another review, that sounds reasonable.
Mhm.
Ernie, I need to ask you a question. The last three things looked like on the email format, there were fill-in questions.
Yeah.
I believe you have to purchase Survey Monkey if you want to have commentary versus multiple choice.
Well,
So do you want me to create some multiple choice ways we might feel about the response, or do you want real live time personal assessments?
it's either one's fine with me, or we could just scrap the questions and people can come with their general comments. I mean, it's.
Okay.
I could still, we can still send, if you do it that way, I can still send this out.
And people have that as a framework to think about.
Right, and
Yeah.
then that's before everybody, they can throw that out as they need to. Remember. It's an easy, that way it doesn't necessarily, to me, I don't see a problem with it being separate.
Okay. Thanks for that. Sorry for that weird question.
And the last category,
Well,
customer focus. And,
Gotta get paid though sometime.
I mean, this is one, I guess, that my consulting roots just, make me want to push that we should have. I think every good organization has a good understanding of who their customer is, and then develops metrics to evaluate how well they're doing over time. And, you know, that involves customer surveys and feedback loops and those types of things. But you can't do any of that until you defined who your customers are and perhaps what tiers they may fit. And I'm guessing if we went around the room, we may all have a different view of who our customers are or aren't. I know that from talking to a few folks. So,
The wisdom of.
yeah, so, you know, we just set kind of one goal. And again, it's for the staff to come back with their thoughts, kind of what called an initial document that we can all discuss and see if we agree with. Ideally, I think, well, do we need to formally approve that? I guess that's a later discussion, but at least start to get on the same sort of platform of who our customers are and how we want to evaluate how we're doing and serving them. So the first step in that's the definition, and that was the only bullet that we had in customer focus. So again, this is for what amounts to this quarter.
This might just be an internal hang up for me, but I feel like customer is not the right word.
I agree.
I don't know
was
if it's
thinking
our,
client, but I don't know, they're not clients though either, so.
they're not purchasing anything we're selling.
Right, but,
But
yeah, but I don't know what the
maybe-
right word would be. I agree with Ernie.
I-
Customers, like the generic term
Right.
for.
I think
if you're
there's,
consultant, you don't necessarily, I mean, you would have.
Yeah, but when I'm advising clients, it's 90% is customer, right? People think customer more than client unless you're in the services industry, typically.
I think there's two streams here. Phil has folks he deals with internally that would be customers. Because if we're looking at complainant and respondent, my question was, I can tell you who you're gonna get good reviews from. The folks that I mean, typically that maybe we mitigate something and make it less harsh, obviously, but, you know, we're gonna sit here and find somebody, we're not gonna get a good response, in my opinion, right? I mean, it's just human nature. So we have this area here, and then we have all the areas he deals with that, Phil, you probably gotta take the wheel there, because you were filling us in on who you thought different customers were, right?
Interested parties, I just feel uncomfortable with the word customer as though something can be purchased from this commission. Nothing can be purchased here. I know, like, it makes sense to have the scope of who are we serving, how are we meeting their needs.
I think you're thinking too much to, not to be.
That's what we do.
So, I mean, so let's just take a real simple example. You're a person that works in the Secretary of State's office, and you take your whole job is taking this paper, marking it up, and giving it to this person. That person, the receiver of your product is your customer, right? So you are providing them a product that helps them do their work.
Or the scope of your service.
It's product, service, however you want to describe it, but every person and every organization has a customer or client. And
End user.
Giving my stars.
I mean,
You just said patience.
Yeah, how about we just said people focus, identifies people's needs and executes to meet or exceed people's expectations. I mean, we can make it as generic, but I think Ernie made it as generic as we can because it's what we do. So I think.
and I'm getting you consulted now. It's also the same mindset,
Right.
right? If it's just people or just end user, the word customer just puts a mental hat on a person that they are providing something of value, that they need to think about the person as their customer. It's a whole sort of different mindset that makes you want to provide a better outcome, right? So a big part of the reason that word is used is because of the connotation that it takes.
But Ernie, going back to my question, then don't we have to define what that is?
That's what the thing is. And again, we can, there's longer discussion. I don't think the complainant and the respondent are necessarily our customers.
I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is I think most of us probably think that.
Probably think that, yeah.
That's what I thought initially. Yeah, that's what I.
Well, again, that's a longer discussion or a larger debate, but I mean, you can't understand how you want to serve them appropriately if you don't define it.
So maybe it would be a healthy exercise to define the interested parties that we interact with. And the scope that we interact with.
Well, still, hey,
That's-
well, they deal with.
Quite honestly, it's to provide honesty in the elections and transparency and people abiding by the law. And so
Just a resolution.
we were created to serve the residents, citizens.
Taxpayers.
Well, not just taxpayers, the people of Ohio, so that they understand that we have a process to ensure that we have a fair election.
So the residents of Ohio, I mean, residents of Ohio, that's where I think, my personal opinion is it's taxpayers, residents, however you want to frame it, and probably the legislature, because we had to follow statute. And I think things flow down from that. I don't view those as, I mean, if you were to call the respondents as our customers, then we would probably go towards like never finding them, right? It changes, it kind of goes to a whole mindset.
Yeah, but are we treating them fair? I mean, that's in a customer review.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I want to make sure that we're treating both the respondent and the complainant in a fair way, in an equitable way. That we're timely in our responses and all of that. And so they are customers.
Okay, that's fair.
They come before this commission, so I would definitely consider them customers. I definitely consider the legislature and the residents of the state of Ohio, because we're doing this for them. That's why we were created. You know, we have customers also with the boards of election. Bill has to interact with them on a regular basis. Chris has to interact with them, and, you know, are we providing the timely response to whatever they're asking for? Vice versa, you know, are they, you know, interacting with us in an appropriate way? So we've got many customers. We just need to nail down who all we want to assess. And I think Phil and Chris could definitely help us with, you know, who they regularly come in contact. You could say the Attorney General's office, you could say the Secretary of State's office, because again, we're providing information to them so that they can either serve people with, you know, your fines have not been paid, or with the Attorney General, gets ugly.
Mhm.
And I would actually, as this evolves, I would actually think that the focus might actually shift to be of a higher value. Because if we're not, I mean, these are obviously, the operations are essential, but I think that some of the things that we've heard, like maybe there wasn't good service, or maybe there wasn't, things weren't delivered what someone may have thought was in a timely manner. Like, those are things that in order to even get people here, we have to, you know what I mean, look for ways to do that in maybe a different manner, or a better manner, or whatever. That might, I think that that's as important as a strategic thinking.
Well, and you're going right to where this, hopefully, you use the right word, evolves, right? You start out with the definition, then you think about what are the interactions and service points? And then how do we, you know, what are our goals to provide them? Timely service, you know, those types of things. And then how do we evaluate our success, right? And we may have tiered customers. We may think, okay, our first high-level customers X and B, so that when the staff is thinking about, okay, I've got diametrically opposed priorities with customers, well, they can fall back on such and such as a tier 1 customers. Tier 3, I'm gonna have to err on the side of the tier 1 and explain to tier 3 why they're not gonna get the typical great service we like to provide. But that framework has to start with a place and a lot of discussion and whatnot, right?
Agreed.
So, but that's what you're describing is certainly, as I see it, the aspiration to get to. It's not gonna happen in a year. It may not happen in our full term, but every little step that we take, I think, is advantageous to the organization and to the people of Ohio. Right?
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that's been done to make this goal a reality. Although we all probably would have loved it to happen more efficiently, right? As your goal. But the systems beyond the goals are what's going to create the consistency long term, right? And then we'll all feel more comfortable day in and day out, and we won't have random awkward situations. Not on you, Phil or Chris, but just for lack of not having
A system.
the bandwidth or a formalized system, taking the pressure off.
So in 15 is the deadline for deadline for thoughts.
Send it.
Okay. We'll sending those to you, Mr. Richter. Fortunately, I know your inbox is very much looking forward to them.
Will there be a reminder on that by chance for those of us who have several children? And say, they're responsible.
Several children.
Yeah, several.
I don't know, they're any better as adults.
Several children, staff and or clients served across.
There will be a variety of.
Classroom friends out. Okay. good. Yeah.
I'm gonna get hangry.
Well, I mean,
And she's in front of me, so
that's
Words that are holidays. Yeah.
so I mean, unless there is other input, I mean, do we want to approve this today with the additions discussed in terms of percentages? Or do we want to think about it and revisit it the next?
I am fine moving forward today. I think a lot of work has went into this, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner,
Yeah, thank you so much.
For your work. With the exception of some of the, the typeface issues, yeah, I see no reason.
You're talking about the circles. Just clarifying here.
Well,
Concern.
Thank you.
Clarifying your concern.
and that, I think it would be given. I've, done a lot of work on this, it'd probably be inappropriate for me to make a motion or second, so I'll leave it up to the group to do that if you want to move forward.
I'm happy to make that motion, Mr. Knight, or, to you.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, yes.
When Madam Chair, I'll second.
So we have a motion on the floor to move forward with the document as it is being sent out in a Survey Monkey format
Modification.
with the modifications of some circles
And grammatical,
and grammatical.
just finalizing it.
Okay, so, and that motion has been duly seconded. Does that sound like that's the motion that you were, okay? Okay, perfect. So a motion has been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried with the vote of 6-0. And thank you again for all your comments.
Thank you.
So, at this point, the only thing left on the agenda is to let you know that our next meeting will be a 2-day extravaganza. Potentially.
I do have one more thing I want to.
Okay.
discuss.
Sorry.
That's okay.
And for the two, what's our start times?
10 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
And I thought.
We can expect
I
10 to
thought-
5 each day.
Yes,
Not the second.
not the second,
I need to be
although,
up by 2.
okay, so 10 to 2.
But the second day is a regular hearing.
Correct.
Commission.
Correct. There will be something else on there, but not, well, whatever we don't get done on the 27th,
Well, area.
area
I
28.
only asked for my purpose, if there will be agenda items on the 28th. Regular agenda
But you need
items.
to-
Well, yeah, because obviously I'll be here on the 27th in a different capacity.
Right.
But
Oh, yeah,
will there be regular agenda items to you?
yeah,
For you to
Proceed, okay.
pay that.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes, I am anticipating, it. And I'll go through all that kind of stuff and let you and Mr. Stepford know.
Okay.
If there's any kind of conflict in there. Okay, so yeah, that will all be laid out at the appropriate time. The other issue that I want to discuss, not on the agenda, but well, I want to think it was April or May of this year, an attorney for Mr. Borges filed an action in the Supreme Court of the State of Ohio against the commission on either prohibition or procedendo. Kind of an interesting combination, as it related to the essentially the householder matters that involved him. Trying to say either we waited too long, we can't go forward, that's why it was prohibition, or alternatively, let's get this thing moving forward, which I was willing to do, but I was kind of waiting until all of the federal stuff got done before it moved forward. But he filed that. We were represented by actually the former State Senator Larry Alhoff, represented the commission in the Supreme Court, filed respective motions. Just last week, the Supreme Court issued their decision, which denied the complainant's motion for Mr. Borges' motion for prohibition. So we're able to go forward. And they kind of gave this interesting little scenario as it related to procedendo in terms of we want you to proceed, but we want to hear from you more factual evidence. And they gave us like 2 weeks to file. They gave us 2 weeks to file something, and then Mr. Borges' folks would file something for 2 weeks after that. And then we would have an opportunity to respond to that after that. Well, as I talked about it with our council, we thought, well, if they want us to proceed and I was prepared, I've been prepared to proceed, but I've been holding off because of this. I decided, let's go ahead and set it for preliminary review, which is where we're at, because we got Ms. Tavares and Ms. Kaufman were on the commission at the time. We just continued the preliminary review of all of the matters involved in Mr. Householder and the other persons who were involved in that, because of the ongoing federal case. We did get a specific motion from the then attorney for Mr. Householder that requested that the matter be continued. So we did. And so I decided, as I talked about it with Mr. Alcock, we agreed that it was best to just go ahead and let's get it set. Let's move it forward at a preliminary review stage and see where things go from there. And then I talked to Andrew Maley, who is Mr. Borges' attorney, yesterday. And, when I explained to him our thought process and where we're coming from, he agreed that that was a reasonable approach. So we're going to move it forward on November 2nd. Notices will be going out here either today or tomorrow, depending on how quickly Chris and I work together on getting them completed. There are 4 cases that are currently pending before the commission, 3 that were filed by the secretary, 1 that was filed by the attorney general. The attorney general's case only involves Mr. Householder and his campaign committee, and it involves potential improper use of campaign funds when he paid his attorneys out of his campaign fund for representation. The other 3 involve various respondents who were involved in the relatively infamous House Bill 6 situation. So we'll get notice out of here today. In talking with Mr. Miley about it, he agreed that, and he and Mr. Obhoff are going to work together. Then after we get the notices done, I'm going to send them to Mr. Obhoff. They're going to then work on one pleading to be filed with the court to more or less say, we're moving forward. We've got it set. We're prepared to go. And hopefully that will be sufficient for the court. At least that's the initial discussion that we've all had. I've had it separately with each of them. And they were going to discuss the specifics of what was going to be filed. But he indicated that it made sense to him. And as he indicated, well, since we're asking you to proceed, if you're proceeding, I'd have a hard time arguing against what you're wanting to do. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on where that is. Look forward to it for November the 2nd. And again, it will just be a preliminary review. We'll send out notice. Presumably we will get responses now from, if not all of the respondents, some of them, because the interested parties have either made pleadings as a part of that federal case, or we're all aware, been found guilty as a result of the hearing of the trial that they had. So it could be that if we get enough information, we could make a decision right there, or it could be we need to set that for a hearing. That's some of that for a hearing down the line. We have to see. I got an email last Friday, I think it was, from a gentleman who has indicated he will be representing Mr. Householder in his campaign committee. Mr. Miley indicated that he was only brought, according to him, he was only brought on to represent Mr. Borges through this process. So presumably the attorneys that were representing him when we were originally taking this matter up are going to be representing him. I don't know that for certain because I haven't had discussions with them, but I'm going under that assumption. And we'll see what the other respondents to the case have to say. Any questions, feel free to ask, but that's the plan right now. As it relates, and as it relates to the next meeting, Mr. X had certain persons that he still wanted to testify. I've either sent out subpoenas and gotten responses back, or have not gotten back, but I will double check with the individual who have all indicated that they will be present or available on the 27th. I know that there have been conversations between, I think, between Mr. Hicks, Mr. Goldstein, and Mr. O'Brien about the possibility of having Mr. Goldstein submit a writing of some sort and not necessarily appear in person. So I don't know, you know, if that's what you got to do, that's your case. You do what you want to do with your case, but I wouldn't think that we'd have a problem with that. But that'll be something that they work out.
Was Peter Schmidt part of that?
Peter Schmidt has passed away.
No, it's very sad.
Yes, it is. It is. So anyway, that's kind of where we are with upcoming stuff. So
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, to the executive director, something we can do to equip ourselves prior to that meeting seems to be a lot of rebel rousing from one certain attorney.
Yes.
Just, is there even, I was personally myself for my board, administrator, I served in looking over Robert's Rules of Order. Is there anything we could do to equip to run an efficient meeting with a lot of respect and order?
It's been requested every time.
efforts have been
Every
made
effort.
to try and do that.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, in all
Yeah.
honesty, would you not say that? I mean, it's always, stated very plainly what the expectations are, and what will be tolerated and what will not be tolerated. And, sometimes it is adhered to and sometimes it is literally thrown out the window.
Is there anything that we can you verse us at all on, I mean, when they're making recommendations for sustaining, overruling, those types of things, so we can just feel equipped sitting in these chairs? Like that might be helpful to create, hey, we're, so they can't. Accusations have been made to us, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything we can do what would you recommend to us? Like, is there anything we can read or be prepared with to?
I don't think so, because those kind of decisions need to either come from the chair or potentially me, as it moves forward.
The last time that they appeared, Bill, our executive director, staff attorney, took that role.
Okay.
And I
Because I
think
do
that's
feel like-
appropriate that
I
he
do
would
feel
do
like
that.
it's absolutely appropriate because as an attorney and none of us sitting here
Rule on objections.
being in that capacity, I don't think that it's fair for any one person to have that if we're not familiar enough or comfortable enough. And I'm not ashamed to say I'm not
Right.
comfortable. I do think that having Mr. Richter act in that capacity was a lot. I think it just kind of cleared everything up.
The meeting went smoother.
Yeah,
But it didn't
absolutely.
just,
Because he knows how to handle those things and, it's not my.
well, it should be his role,
favorite.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the only other thing I would say on, our rules do speak to courtroom decorum and that's to be followed. I mean, and I know that, we could use that. I mean, if you're in a courtroom, it would seem to me if we had someone who was not following courtroom decorum, they would be in contempt of court. Now, we don't have anything like that, but it could be suggested, or there could be breaks that are being taken, I mean, as I was thinking, how do you can't really sanction somebody, but we could, I would think, if somebody is unruly, give them a timeout and we take a break. And, maybe there's a discussion with the principals and the chair and vice chair and the chair and Phil about, this is how we expect this to happen. I'm saying privately.
Sure, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would ask during that period, this is just me, I would ask if you're being recorded. Just you have to be careful, that's all, but I would ask the principals. Because if you're having a sidebar, I want to know if I'm being recorded.
And it would be nice to have that press box instituted, and especially looking at these higher profile cases that are coming, just
Right.
managing them in advance so it's equal for everybody coming through, because you're gonna have more attention.
It's a good point.
My question was gonna be along the same lines as Commissioner Lyle, except I wasn't making the assumption that we don't have the ability to have a contempt or sanction. I mean, do we have any levers that we can push for, you know?
As an I believe as an administrative agency, you're very limited in that regard. You know, you have what statutory authority you are provided with. And there really isn't anything that specifically addresses anything like that.
So let me ask you that, I'm sorry, you finished?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So if someone makes a comment about our integrity, without me getting into it, do we then have the ability as commissioners to address that person?
I don't know why not.
Because there have been some things said that I would have
Yeah.
definitely talked about to the person had I knew I had that ability. Because there were,
I mean, I have tended, I guess you could say you know.
they were personally offensive to me.
Yeah,
I'm
I have
just,
tended to not highlight those just so that we could get past them and move.
well, no, I understand that, but there's a line where
I don't disagree.
it
with
goes
you.
back to our rule about courtroom decorum and
Right.
what's proper and appropriate.
Right.
If I may interject, in the past, those comments have been made. Probably by the same person, and they have been addressed by, I can recall 4 different commissioners who addressed those. And, you know, and even Vice Chair Tavares this past, you know, I think the past time said, that's, you're out of line. I mean, we've all tried to address it.
Okay,
But I welcome it. I mean, I think, I don't know what voice it will be that maybe would be the voice that would break through.
probably none, but at least if we're all together, I think
Exactly.
that sends a message that
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
that we're first of all supportive of the chair, and secondly, we're not approving of that kind of behavior that is like adolescent behavior, in my opinion.
It doesn't further the case in any way, shape, or form.
No,
And
no.
and I feel just the insulting, derogatory things
they're
are
inappropriate.
offensive.
Yeah, they
They're
are.
inappropriate, they're offensive, and it really just shows a lack of respect for the body as a whole.
Right.
So I welcome it.
Yeah.
Anybody that would like to say, excuse me.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say, yeah, I'm not gonna say no, but it's just, to me, it potentially engenders more
Yeah, there's a.
responses than.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that.
And so that's
Like
why
I said, there's a-
tended to.
I still think there's a line. I understand the balance. I get it.
Maybe it's at a certain point, there is a gavel thrown down and then we move forward. And it's not so much as even words need to be said or responded to because the conjecture will inflame. But if it's just made clear that the gavel will be,
And if you all are comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Just not,
we
you know,
will,
just.
Move on.
And I think I've said probably 953 times. Please move forward. Please go on.
At least 963.
So
Maybe more.
do we have
been
that?
very kind.
Yeah.
Do we have
Are
that
always very
lever?
gracious.
Let's just say, the chair isn't, whatever the interaction is, the chair says, please move forward. Please move forward. This is your last warning. If you do not move forward, your case will be closed and we will vote as a commission based on or some version of that, right? Like at a certain point, you either move on or you're done.
Right.
Or we'll move on to the respondent's case. Your case is now done because you refuse to actually give case-related information.
We haven't historically done that, no. But certainly if the commission decides that to be the case, I don't think that there is anything that would prevent the commission from doing that. I'm not sure what entails from that then later on, in terms of supporting a commission decision if there is an appeal or something on this. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thought I have in the back of my mind. I'm not disagreeing that it may not be an appropriate thing to do. But that's, what's the result?
The downside is there is an appeal that I guess we lose. And then we have to readdress it. I mean, I don't know, I almost, especially with these other cases coming up that are even more controversial. I would rather we appropriately, I mean, not just willy-nilly, but, appropriately take measures that, I mean.
We did set timers the one day, didn't we?
Right.
Didn't we set timers?
I know it's
So, I mean,
consistency.
we're, I think, to your point, we can say, you're wasting your 15 minutes. If you are going to argue or throw out, kangaroo court and all of the other things that have been said and how we're so ineffective, that's just wasting your time. If you want to do that, you take your 15 minutes to do that. But then at the end of that 15 minutes, we're moving to the respondent. I mean,
That was in prior cases,
Yeah, and maybe.
Yeah.
prior ones.
We give
Okay.
everyone at the beginning of a hearing, the standards we expect.
Yeah.
So everyone is clear, these are the standards we abide by in this hearing room. And, whether they're written, whether we pass them out, or whether we say it at the beginning of our session. So people can say, so they can't say they don't know what the standards, because they're watching the behavior of other bad apples.
Right.
They're gonna take on that negative behavior. We've gotta be clear with everyone that we're not going to accept anything below this. And then gavel them down.
Right. I think that's very fair.
Just
Where's the filming or, for someone to, bring the camera, which is perfectly within their right. Do we have any rules in the book for those, for that currently, because
And settle the petition.
It's relatively unobtrusive, as it relates to keeping the commission from moving forward and doing its business.
I think
I thought they had to let us know though. I mean, he's never informed us, just saying, I thought you had to tell them.
No, well, no, he's approached us before.
Okay.
So, I mean, going way back.
but we do have the ability to like literally put tape on the floor and make them up.
Yeah, to create a private space.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly say a specific spot
right.
where that could take place.
You know where we'll.
That's our room. It's not
Very
really any room.
Talk about intrusive.
Does it have to be in the room? Can it be like in the doorway?
Because someone brought it up earlier.
I like
Also, a matter of order matter
Mhm.
in its bag.
Yeah. Which question, there was a lot of.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it would be wise to have our house in order in all ways.
I think it would behoove the commission. The executive director, I think he is arrested, we empower him to designate a spot that he sees fit and to take it off. That wouldn't need a motion or Mr. Ricky, I mean.
No.
We have
Sorry about that. Enough back here, or,
historically set.
Right.
Usually he does. For one on the 27th, it's usually set in the corner by the door.
Oh, stare at me.
Yeah. Yeah, we were in that hot seat for a couple of times.
Well, Madam Chair, I just refer everyone to, under the rules, what I was referring to earlier, it says, 3517-1-11 preliminary review and hearings, which speaks about the hearings, and then under B at 5, it says conduct of hearing, all parties in council shall observe usual decorum as would be expected in a courtroom. The chair shall rule as to admissibility of evidence and or other matters subject to objection or regarding the conduct of the hearing. So there is a pretty straightforward to me, right?
So then you may
Then
want
it
the
doesn't give a remedy.
decorum.
No, there isn't a remedy, but like I said,
They don't listen, all you can do is keep gabbling them.
well, or you can take,
Stop the meeting.
you can stop meetings, you can take time
Won't
out.
proceed in this fashion.
Yeah, I mean, the chair has the ability to do that. And I would think that would be appropriate, particularly if it's not following decorum. So, we'll give you 15 minutes to come back and
So
follow the rules that you need to use your usual decorum, be appropriate.
the,
Yeah.
the,
I can show it to you.
So I 100% agree with everything you're saying. Here's.
I'm with you about a remedy. It would be nice to be able to.
But here's the other challenge is that I think in some cases, they really don't care how long it takes because they have ulterior motives. And the person who's being injured, like a better term, is the other party who now has to come 3, 4, 5, who knows how many times to get to the end of the hearing. So we're somewhat playing in the hands of the actor because they don't care about length. Because to a lot of extent, they enjoy the length. They enjoy the fact they keep having to come back and back and
So
back.
they always complain about.
Well, yeah, but that's clearly
Right.
not a concern where they
A little
would.
disingenuous.
Yeah, they would limit their time and as opposed to all the other stuff that they do. So that's clearly disingenuous. And the person who's injured is the other interested party who now has, instead of a 2-hour hearing, a 4-day multiple return hearing, or even if it's a smaller one, instead of it being 2 hours, it's 5 o'clock. So, taking a series of timeouts
Well,
isn't affecting only one party is my concern.
well, you could,
Bringing up for the person who.
Yeah. And in the case we're talking about.
you could use it.
Right, who's not coming back on their 3rd day, and you're just taking something that should take X and making it 10X.
Right.
Well, but you could use it judiciously. And then you could follow up with what you had said before. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Sure.
That way you unfortunately, it's like a child, you warned them before you spank them, I guess. And then I guess what you would end up doing, if you do that once or twice and you have a little sidebar and it doesn't work, then I think we go back to what you had talked about, Mr. Knight, and that was saying that if you're gonna, your case is gonna be concluded here. You're gonna act appropriately, or if you don't follow the rules, then I'm closing your case. You can appeal, you want to appeal, fine. And then I would send it over to the respondent and let them,
In their case, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're
and
done.
then we're done.
Madam Chair, Executive Director, there have been instances in the legislature where we did set a timer for hearings because of the length of that which we were hearing and the volume of the participation.
Good.
Is there any potential legal blowback for us if both parties are afforded the same increment of time?
I
So
think
we
they
set
said they did
that
that.
forth in advance,
We did that.
right? As we did it, but is there any way this fails us on our end? I would just want to make sure we're protected.
I don't think, as long as you do it equitably, I don't
Okay.
think so.
I would recommend we
Absolutely.
advise that is the way we are going to be proceeding in those 2 hearings. Because of the length and extent of the case and the people that are testifying, out of respect for those who are traveling. I mean, there were women and men who traveled to the, what was the other big controversial case we had, and they never even got to be heard. So I think out of respect for all of the interested parties, just setting that and sending it out in advance, at least 2 days, 2 business days, so that they know. And then you can repeat it at the beginning of
Are
the
you
hearing as well.
referring to the one on the 27th?
Yeah, I would think just setting that up in advance of the meeting by email. This is how we move forward. Friendly reminder, here is what statute reads as to how our meetings are to be conducted. We plan to adhere to statutes.
So the challenge I can believe everything you said, except in regards to the upcoming meeting. If I'm the respondent, I'm gonna say they've already had 2 days. So even if we get the entire 27th, we're still a day short. So we would be effectively ending the complainant's case to even, I mean, because even if you said, let's just, because I was thinking you said that, let's say we go to 4 o'clock and we say you're gonna have the 4 o'clock, it's 3 hours and 3 hours. That sounds fair on the 27th, except for the fact that the complainant's already had 2 full days.
But I would say if it's agreeable to the parties.
Yeah, if they're
because
agreeable, sure.
My observation is that those.
Because it's gonna be agreeable.
One party
Well,
would like
I
to.
don't anticipate that being a problem. Again, brief conversations with regard to respondents counsel, and he doesn't have that much of a case that he's going to.
Okay. Well, if you can get agreement.
They seem ready to.
Yeah, I do. Get on with it.
I would heavily push for, you know, let's just say, hey, 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. All cards on the table would really be helpful to me to be on the 4 o'clock and the 7th, but I can manage. We have, you know, we're doing this on the 27th and we're done. And here's the split. And, you know, Mr. Hicks the complainant may not love that, but if we have the ability to do it, I mean, this will be nearly full day 3 to present. And if you weren't spending so much time with other stuff, we might be closer to the end.
And there wasn't here until last time.
So.
No, the last year we did
The timer.
the timer, yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, people adhere to it.
Yeah.
You just said, this, your time is up. Right. And then,
Finish the sentence.
yes, and then there, of course, was, well, that person.
Is that the time?
There was no,
I like
it was
that.
very fair.
And that is fair, right?
There,
Yeah,
yeah, the
fair.
structure, I
Structure
think
and
is
fairness.
essential in order to keep it moving in the right direction.
And particularly given the cases we have in front of us, that makes sense.
Do a cut down on costs for the respondent and.
So what I've heard is, I know we need to, Commissioner Hagan has a hard on it. So we would like that communication to be sent out saying this is our conduct, this is what to expect. This is what to expect, given that this is, should be the final day. We're going to adhere by these courtroom, standards, and we're going to give everyone a given amount of time to present, and then we'll go to complainant, respondent, and so forth until the end of the day.
And it may be nice to even preface it with, as complaints have been issued, we would like to maintain order, and this is how we intend to proceed moving forward, and reflection of previous hearings. Something along those lines where it is a response to
Behavior.
and now this is the resolution.
You feel good about that?
I don't have any problem with that.
And a friendly reminder, this is what the code says.
Yes. So,
Maybe not even friendly.
Yeah. I was err on friendly.
Madam Chair,
That's true.
my motion to adjourn, if you would like it.
I would like to know, Bill, is there anything else that you needed?
Nope.
I just had one quick one.
Okay.
I'm not gonna, so for the 27th, are we gonna break for lunch? Or are we gonna do lunch like last time? So people just know,
We haven't talked about it, but I would assume that we could order lunch again like we did.
and then just,
And
we'll just pay you.
Yeah.
That worked well, I thought.
Yeah. that'd be-
I don't wanna,
They'll bring your request. Less than at least 2 breaks in addition to lunch, just for.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what you should do.
yeah.
Bio breaks.
Yeah.
Also,
Union break.
I did not read the cases into,
You're right.
so can I do that real quickly?
Sure.
So, the first case was Robertson v. Curlis, 2023G-010. The next one is O'Brien v. Curlis, 2023G-011. And Kunze, I'm sorry, Kunze et al. v. Curlis, 2023G-016. With that being said, I think we have a motion on the floor to adjourn by a second.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, sign. Adjourn with a vote of 6 to 0.
I do it for no.
Thank you.
Also, no, everybody, So, I'm a pin guy and every job I've ever had, I have a bell pin for it. So, I have Ohio Elections Commission's pins made. They're a little big, my pin guy made them a little bigger, but whatever. So I had to buy 100.
You have to, you can't.
So if
They have a limit.
if you wear them, fine. If you don't, put them in your drawer, but I.
Yeah.
Buy 100, but if you buy 50, the price is so.
Right.
Next week, we're gonna have pins, we're gonna have, we're gonna throw in gavels down, I don't know.
Officially.
Look out. Customers.
Now, as far as lunch goes,
Thank
we'll get 27.
Oh, are we gonna?
Finish that order with Potbelly's.
Cool.
Very nice.
Well, this is in violation.
It's not
Yeah.
here, but it's not a good treat.
Yeah.
I guess my sandwich shop on demand is near me, but.
Okay. When I placed the order,
You collect all
order is saved in there that it's
You
a
collect-
piece of cake that I just go in and do.
You want some?
I would like a piece of cake.
What?
Yeah.
You want some union?
Absolutely, I would love
I can make a cake.
I'm keeping the same, I've got just a smaller version, it's a larger.
Okay.
Trevor's also made that. Viciously, I'm gonna add that, you know.
Why you think that would be valuable?
You know, to make an appropriate cake.
I will add that to the survey.
Exactly, yeah,
Very good, thank you.
Thank
but
you.
only as long as you say you like the cake. I'll take orders as well.
Safe,
All right.